Xcom Chimera Squad is the most divisive of the three modern Xcoms, but as someone who's played it through 5 times and 100%ed it, I honestly think it's a good game, but let's examine it in detail. To start with, gameplay in Chimera Squad is very different to the previous entries. The strategic layer and the global map is completely removed and replaced with a very simple cityscape. In fact, the strategic aspect of Chimera Squad is easily its worst aspect. In XCOM 2, there's a lot of strategic choice and depth when it comes to moving around on the map, building resistant network, researching techs, manufacturing equipment, recruiting soldiers and leveling them. Unfortunately, every aspect of these mechanics is weaker in Chimera Squad. Your agents level up in a linear manner with only 5 levels, and only 2 of those levels having a choice between different abilities. It's the same with tech and equipment. Research new gun, it simply adds +1 damage to weapons of that type. It doesn't give you access to an actual new weapon. The fact that agents can't switch weapons also limits your options. If they start the game with a shotgun, they will end the game with a shotgun. This too limits player choice. Instead of resistant networks, we can create field teams, which simply provide you with income and decrease in unrest at higher levels. Let's discuss unrest and anarchy, this game's version of the Avatar project. At the end of a turn, you gain anarchy for every district at maximum unrest. Honestly, this is a really simple system to manage. Just do missions at places with high unrest, right? And use your abilities to lower anarchy. Even on the highest difficulty, I never felt threatened or challenged by this mechanic. And that's how I feel about a lot of the strategic layer for Chimera Squad. The final thing of note about the strategic layer is your agents. There are 11 in total, but in a campaign you'll only have access to a maximum of 8. They can be trained in a system not dissimilar to the UFO After series. They have access to generic training at the beginning, but as they level up, they gain access to more specialized training based on their abilities. If they ever get downed at all in combat, they will also gain a permanent debuff that can only be removed via a training regiment. Overall, I didn't find the strategic layer very enjoyable. It stripped away too much from XCOM 2 and has been simplified so much that it lacks a lot of player choice. On top of that, the unrest and anarchy mechanics are so easy to manage you don't even need to think about mitigating unrest and its effect. Unlike XCOM 2, where it felt like if you didn't have a handle on the Avatar project, it could quickly spiral out of control. The tactical layer is where the game truly shines, mainly because it's almost entirely copied from XCOM 2. But simplified in some ways while expanded in others. To start with, levels are a lot smaller, and instead of having one large map like in XCOM 2, levels are often divided up into segments, which are broken up by breaches. I actually really like this idea. Why? Because in previous XCOMs, the strategy was always to engage the enemy at maximum range, and make use of distance to force the enemy to waste turns moving towards you. You can't really do that here. Instead you have to fight in close quarters and think more tactically. The turn order system is also different. In previous games you take your turn, then the enemy takes theirs. Here we have a timeline based system. The order of when your team acts is based on who breaches the room first. This gives you a lot of control over the turn order, allowing you to move characters that you want to act early to the front, while having characters you want to act later in the back. The enemy also uses this timeline system, which again allows you to plan your attacks, as you can see who will act when. You can attempt to kill enemies in such a way that the enemy never get a turn, but on higher difficulties that will be harder. Or you can note dangerous enemies in the timeline and attempt to eliminate or stun them. While the system is different to XCOM 2, it is rather interesting and I dare say fun to play around with. I think the game benefits from having smaller zones with faster combat. In general, Chimera Squad feels like a game designed for short bursts of gameplay, where you don't have to start an 80-hour campaign like in previous XCOMs. When it comes to your agents, they're rather mixed bag. While they are all unique and have unique abilities, some of them are just flat out better than others. Patchwork's shock ability is crazy when maxed out. The ability not only arcs between enemies, damaging all of them, but also has a chance to stun enemies, which can lead to nearly the whole enemy team being disabled. Honestly, I would sum up tactical gameplay of Chimera Squad as fun, fast-paced, but poorly balanced. If you're a fan of XCOM 2 and want a carbon copy of it, you will likely be disappointed. But if you have a wider interest in tactics games, I think the gameplay is appealing. Or if you're someone who wanted to like previous XCOMs but found the game too much of a time investment due to their length, this game is literally made for you. Chimera Squad is set 5 years after the events of XCOM 2. The Elders were defeated and driven from the Earth, but their alien mutant slaves are still on the planet, largely trapped on the Earth with humanity. Chimera Squad is set in City 31, a former Advent city and perhaps one of the last cities on the Earth. The game opens with the mayor inviting the Xcom Reclamation Agency to the city to act as a security force. Said mayor is then assassinated the day Chimera Squad enters the city. The game's plot revolves around trying to get to the bottom of the mayor's assassination, while trying to keep tensions in the city from reaching a critical point. What makes City 31 interesting as a setting is that it's the only place in the world where aliens, humans and hybrids live alongside each other. It's hinted that the Earth has largely been divided between aliens and humans after the war, and City 31 is a proof of concept. Can aliens and humans coexist? Well, after the mayor's death, you're given the option to pursue one of 3 different paramilitary groups operating in the city. The way the system works is actually great. Each of the groups has their own storyline, and the order you tackle them affects how far along they get with their goals. Take them out first and you eliminate them when they're in the very early stages of their plan. Leave them for last and you'll be fighting the group at the height of their power. This is a good system and encourages replayability, to see everything the factions have to offer. Unfortunately, the story doesn't really go anywhere, which is understandable due to Chimera Squad being a spin-off, but while each of the groups you fight are interesting and the 4th group's behaviour understandable, the real antagonist behind the conflict is never really fully revealed, having only a really cryptic cutscene at the end of the game showing them. Honestly, the story itself isn't that great. What's far more interesting is the lore around the game. When I look at discourse around Chimera Squad, I often see rather confusing or outright incorrect statements. I see many people wondering why humanity doesn't just exterminate the aliens, or how unrealistic it is for aliens and humans to coexist, and they're right in some ways. It is hard for aliens and humans to coexist, which is why City 31 is the only place in the world where it's being attempted on a large scale. But for the extermination idea, can humanity exterminate the aliens? And if they could, would they want to? Let's start with the could idea. We never have any confirmation on either alien or human population on the Earth, but it's likely that humanity's population has fallen a fair bit, what due to the war, the humans being forced to live in Advent megacities, or out in the post-apocalyptic Earth with its cities filled with zombies, random Advent terror bombings, and occasional chrysalid outbreaks. Oh, and of course, the Avatar project wiping out a lot of people in the Advent cities. How many humans are actually left? And after the events of Xcom 2, with the Elders retreating to space, is humanity in any position to engage in an all-out war with the aliens still on the surface? With most of the Earth in ruins, most animals extinct or endangered, it makes sense that they try to bring peace and rebuild the world as a first priority, because humanity might not survive in its current state, let alone an all-out war across the planet's surface with an unknown number of well-equipped, warlike aliens. Now let's think about the second point. Would people want to exterminate the aliens? Humanity would be pretty divided on the issue. For people living in the Advent cities, aliens were a part of normal life. They potentially lived in close proximity for them for 20 years. There will be a lot of people born into a world where aliens are simply there as normal people that they interact with. And that's not even taking into account that a lot of humans would be sympathetic to Advent, who, after all, cured nearly every human disease, including cancer. For people living in the ruined world, they likely hold more extremist views, since from their perspective, the only time they see aliens is when they carry out terror attacks on their apocalypse shantytowns. But the question again comes down to how many humans are there, and are they mainly in the Advent cities or in the ruined world? There is also the fact the Elders only retreated from Earth. The war is not over, and the aliens have revolted against the aliens together with the human-alien hybrids. Why kill them? They could be allies for when the Elders inevitably return, and they will definitely return. Their whole existence hinges on humanity after all. To put it bluntly, the kill all aliens idea is simply silly. Humanity lacks both the means and the will to carry out such a move, and with the world in its current state, it would likely lead to humanity's extinction, or weakening itself for the Elders' return. It makes sense that the humans and aliens basically keep to themselves, with City 31 being the only major attempt to normalize relations, and the city isn't exactly doing great with various paramilitary groups and riots taking place on the regular. But it's logical that both the humans and the aliens see each other as their only real allies against a potential second invasion by the Elders. Peace between the two groups is mainly a necessity more so than anything else. Did Chimera Squad kill Xcom? I don't think so. If it did, that's likely due to Firaxis being stupid. They supposedly paused development of XCOM 3 to work on Marvel Midnight Suns, and only recently fired a lot of the XCOM staff, though something XCOM related is still in the works, supposedly. Personally, I find it hard to believe that a clear spin-off that used a lot of assets from XCOM 2 5 years ago is what's stopping Firaxis from making another one. Considering their recent handle of the Civilization franchise, I think they're stupid is likely the correct outlook. Before we finish, I want to talk about bugs, as this game is rather buggy. It's a lot better than it was at release, and I didn't experience any game-breaking bugs in my playthrough, but what I did experience was a lot of graphical bugs. People sliding around or jerking around at weird angles. It's not really a nice gaming experience. It's hard to get immersed when everyone in the game has a very loose view of gravity and physics. If someone told me the game is broken and unplayable, I believe them. It definitely feels like the game is a hair's breadth from falling apart, and how well it runs will vary wildly from person to person. Is Chimera Squad a bad game? No, but it's not XCOM 3. In fact, it's a game that isn't quite sure what it wants to be. It has some roguelike mechanics like unlocking characters as you play, but at the same time you can't take losses. It's XCOM but without the strategic parts that make XCOM iconic. If we ever do get an XCOM 3, I don't want it to be inspired by Chimera Squad. I wouldn't mind a Chimera Squad 2 though, as I think a smaller, more tactical XCOM style game has potential. If you're interested in picking up the game and seeing it for yourself, the game is £17 on Steam and goes on sale nearly every month or so down to £2.50, and for that price I honestly recommend giving it a try, but there aren't many games that aren't worth it at such a low price. Thank you for watching. The XCOM franchise seems somewhat cursed. Maybe it's their own fault for making Chimera Squad, which is basically XCOM Apocalypse 2. Either way, I hope we do eventually get a new XCOM game, but at this point it might be better to just reboot the franchise again. But hey, we have EA's Star Wars XCOM coming next year to look forward to, as I'm sure it'll be a great game and won't suck at all. Anyway, for my next video I'm planning on making a guide video. Ooh, how droll. Thank you again for watching and see you next time.
You have my undivided attention.
Gotcha! That one's on me.